No, you're fine.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our new boardroom space. Before I start tonight's official welcome and meeting, I want to take a moment and offer the board's sincere thank you to our physical plant, IT, and communication teams for getting our boardroom moved. So, with a special thanks to Josh Reynolds, Jared Tiley, and Kristen Peterson. Thank you so much for ensuring that we will be up and running today. And with that, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our July 22nd, 2025 Board of Directors meeting. It's been 6 weeks, so I have to look at my notes. I'm like, what? Thank you to those attending in person, joining us on Zoom, and watching a recording at a later time. The public is reminded that if they wish to speak during community comment, they will need to fill out a speaker form located in the back of the room on the table to my left and turn it in to our board secretary, Kim Coven, seated at the board table, also on my left. Comments will take place during a designated community comment portion of our agenda. I also want to take a moment to introduce those seated at the table with me. To my right, we have Superintendent Degner, Directors Icestone and Eastham. I'm President Malone. To my left, we have Vice President Abraham, Directors Finch, Lingo, and Board Secretary Coven. And with that, we will dive into tonight's agenda. First up, community comment. Does not look like I have any speaker forms. So we will move right into approval for tonight's agenda. Motion.
Well, I move that we approve the agenda for this evening.
Second.
Thank you. Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Before we move to approval for the consent agenda or have items removed, did any directors who reviewed the bills this cycle have any questions or comments they wanted to make?
I feel like my microphone is nowhere near my face.
I have a question, and I didn't ask it before. That I apologize. It's a very generic question. I just noticed as I was going through the bills, there was some expenditures to like other districts for other enrollments and stuff, and it felt weird that it was coming in the summer. And so, are we getting it like whenever we get asked for the funds, or high level of why we're doing that in the summer?
Yeah, I can give you that. So the state actually specifies when districts should invoice each other for open enrollment. And one of those dates is June 15th cutoff. So we send invoices, other districts do, and we issue after that.
Awesome, thank you.
All right. Anything else?
So I had a question. I emailed it in, but I thought it would be a good opportunity. My question was, we were paying for some security cameras out of the general fund rather than Save or Pebble, and the reason was because it comes from the Iowa Safe School Grant, so I thought that would be an opportunity to highlight what we're doing there.
Yeah, so it is a nice result of that safety grant from the state of Iowa, so it has allowed us to do some more cameras in our outdoor space. And relieves, of course, pressure from Save or Pebble budgets that would have typically funded those. And so you are seeing those expenses come out of the general fund because the receipt of those dollars would be a miscellaneous income.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, are there any items that directors would like to have pulled from tonight's consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion for approval for tonight's consent agenda?
I move we approve tonight's consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. And that takes us, sorry, I have to scroll down to get to policy review. We don't have committee reports or hearings, so we will turn it over to Director Eystone, who chaired.
All right. Seriously, I think I got like a little midget microphone. We've got 3 things on our policy review. 2 of them action. The first one is policy primers on gender identity. This is a case of when we know better, we do better. We had removed based on guidance that we got. Now we've received some different guidance, or maybe better guidance, and we're back in because we're allowed to and we want it there. So that the whole number 1 item is putting that back into several instances of policies. Number 2 is our extra service activities policies. So these are policies around our extra service employees, just to kind of codify, expectations and responsibilities for that group of people that wasn't in existence before. So there's a second reading of those. So it covers all the, definition of what the employee is and their expectations and how to do, reviews of them and things like that. And then the last policy primers is a new set based on basically the end of session changes to code, and there's several things in there. Nothing super major in there. There is a nice summary attachment to the board docs, which if I scroll down, I can find it and actually hit some highlights, or Chase can give us some highlights because he did a really good job earlier if you wanted to. But basically, it's changes some definition of bullying and harassment. There's some stuff is kind of being taken away from the district's responsibility in terms of student abuse claims. That's where did you say that the Department of Health and Human Services is taking that over? So we won't have level 1 and level 2 reporters for that. So that's kind of taken out of our hands. Us elected board members have to get trained on how to have open meetings. Some updates to the chronic absenteeism law that came into effect last year, cleaned some stuff up. We don't have to do the certified letters anymore, which is a cost savings, which is wonderful. And just a couple other minor changes in there. So, like again, those is a first reading, so we won't be taking action on those specific ones this time, but the first 2 we will. Any questions?
I would, unless Chase has something to say at this point.
No, the only thing that I would share with the full board that I shared at PNG was that at the first meeting in August is our annual legislative update for the board, and so the timing is nice on our overall legislative update presentation, which should cover the vast majority of these changes that are encapsulated in these policy primers. So you'll have that information as well before these would come for a board vote.
President Malone, I'd just like to follow up on something Sean said regarding including gender identity in our policies. It's something we should not have been forced to consider not doing, and something that we are doing now, which I think all of us want to have happen. Gender identity is a real thing. It is not something the federal government should be meddling with, and I'm very happy that we have this opportunity, that we're taking this opportunity to restore it to our policies going forward.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Just on the gender identity, I just wanted to thank Grace King and the writing the article that they did, and otherwise it would not have been brought to light. Maybe it would have later, but just thankful for a local journalist, so thank you.
Great. Anything else on policy and governance? All right, that takes us to tonight's discussion item, update on title funds. Superintendent Degner.
Yeah, so most of you are probably aware that some of our title funds have not been distributed as of July 1 as they were congressionally, as part of the congressionally approved budget. Adam's going to walk you through what that impact is to us if we were to not receive those funds. But first, I wanted to read just a piece I got back from the legislative director from Senator Grassley yesterday. There's been quite an advocacy campaign, as you can imagine, around this to contact Senator Ernst, Senator Grassley, and Representative Miller Meeks. So this is from James Rice, a legislative director for Senator Grassley. And he responded to my email that, as you may know, OMB is reviewing grants. They've never said that they intend to withhold funds completely, so there's no reason to assume that you will not receive funds at all. I spoke to the Office of Management and Budget, and I understand that the delay is causing a lot of anxiety and that it is important to get the funding out as soon as possible. They said they cannot give a specific timeline as it is a rolling review, and funds will be released for specific programs as soon as the review is complete. But they called Friday to say that the 21st Century Community Learning Center funds, for instance, should go out today, which we are not a beneficiary of at this time. But that seems fairly optimistic that those funds will be. I think we continue to believe funds will be released. I think the long-term piece for us is going to be just knowing how maybe the congressional budget is built moving forward and what the impact point to that would be next year. Of course, until we have those funds, it's all still speculation, but I thought that was some important insight. That was the only elected official I received a response from. So, Adam, you kind of want to walk through maybe some of the specific details as far as financial impact and what our relief mechanisms might be.
Yeah, so the total amount that's frozen is about $750,000 across the frozen title programs, which represents just under a quarter of our total title allocation. So it's a substantial amount of money. One thing that I do want to emphasize is one of the Title III programs that was frozen is related to English language learner programs. And if we were not to get funded for that, the state of Iowa still has the School Budget Review Committee modified supplemental amount process that allows us to essentially apply for whatever our overage is for English language learner programming. And so we believe that even if these funds were not released, we would reclaim that amount. And that's about $250,000 of that total of about $750,000. So as Superintendent Degner shared, obviously we are hoping that these funds do eventually get released. We've had indication as such in a couple of different ways. And at this point, we're not modifying programming in any way, but certainly monitoring this closely because it is a substantial financial impact.
Any questions or comments from Director?
Thank you, President Malone. I am just outraged at the conduct and actions of Senator Grassley and Representative Miller Meeks. They're supposed to be taking care of people in this state, including all the students in this state that benefit from these programs that school districts are putting in place and making available to students for the students' benefit. Grassley and Miller Meeks should be in constant contact with the superintendent, letting him know what the status of this funding is and working to improve the status of this funding. They're not doing so is simply reprehensible and not acceptable. It's not something I would tolerate at all in any way from any staff member in this district. And I won't be tolerating it at the ballot box when the next election comes up either.
Thank you, Director Easton. Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you for that update. Next up is our annual asset protection report. And CFO Kurth.
Yeah, so you're going to get to hear quite a bit from CFO Kurth here tonight, so I'll just give him a little time to come up to the setup. But every year we provide this annual asset protection report to you as well. Just kind of looking ahead on the agenda here, we're going to come back with the annual operations report next as well. And so these are both annual deliveries that we usually make over the course of the summer. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Adam here and let him get started, hopefully.
We're struggling. I'm just going to fix it for me. See, I've been out of the technology role for too long. Perfect, thank you. All right. So I'm just going to pull up this one document. There are 3 documents that are linked on the agenda item, and questions about any of those. But sorry, make that a little bigger. I do want to highlight a couple of things that are related to this. So the asset protection report is really in terms of our employee insurance, and then also in terms of other insurance that the district has in place. And so I pull up this. It's focused on premiums rather than coverages. There are detailed coverage information, really everything except cybersecurity, in another attachment on this item. But I did want to show some of the changes, and by and large, we are pretty happy with the program that we're a part of. So a quick piece of information for the board and for the public. For most of our insurance coverage, we work through IPSIP program. That is a district program. We are one of the member districts of that, and that has resulted in comparison to other districts, much more stable premiums over the years. And also we haven't seen exorbitant increases in deductibles, for example. So for example, when we have an incident, our deductible is $1,000, period. It's always $1,000. This is in comparison to other districts like Waukee that have recently had deductibles that are indexed towards their building value in the form of like 1% of building value or more. Which, you know, in some cases can result in deductibles of over $1 million for a high school building, for example. And so we're very happy within the district with our coverage, with the service that we've received through the program, and also with the relatively controlled costs that we've seen. And that's reflected here in terms of the 6.59% increase for property casualty overall, and then 3.1% increase for workers' comp, which are substantially below, again, what most districts across Iowa reporting. You may notice that there is a very large number down the bottom right, that 94.73% for equipment breakdown, and that's driving an overall 26% increase. All of these premiums are funded out of the management fund, so none of this touches the general fund, though it does protect the general fund. The reason for that sizable equipment breakdown increase is now working to cover HVAC as well. So HVAC, repairs, preventative maintenance, that sort of cost to the district is something that we haven't expanded to all buildings within this, but we're scaling it. This is our first year of including HVAC in that equipment breakdown policy. And so we're really excited as a district to see what that looks like in terms of what we're able to do from a claims standpoint, from a service standpoint, with our HVAC systems, and then look to scale that in future years. And also, we've had a commitment from our insurer to look at adjusting that premium up or down as we get more. And so we're excited about the expansion of that program. Ultimately, it creates authority within the general fund, and there's a complicated reason for that. But at the same time, I think it's something that'll be really good for people. Both in terms of our equipment, reliability, our ability to service it, that sort of thing. The other thing that I did want to highlight is our, and I have a summary document that talks about other areas of insurance. Employee health insurance, our premiums did not increase this year. Since I think 2017, we've only had an increase in 1 year, and that was last year. So last year we had an increase of about 13%. Which still kept us well below UEN district averages for health insurance program costs, as well as employee share. And then this year we're holding that steady. So we have seen substantial pressure on our health insurance program, particularly in terms of pharmaceutical costs that continue to grow substantially. And this year, one of the big projects for the Health Insurance Committee is going to be kind of a holistic look at our entire program in terms of whether, what are potential options for plan design. what are, potential options in terms of, employee share of costs, that sort of thing. Really looking at that as a committee, which includes employees from all of our employee groups, also includes the groups that we work with on a professional basis to manage our insurance programs, so that we can continue to deliver really what I would call a best-in-class insurance product for our employees. Families, while also making sure to keep our program healthy overall. So, again, no increase there in premiums, but it is something where I think over this coming year, we'll probably be coming back to you with more information about things, recommended program changes, that sort of thing as it relates to insurance. So with that, I will pause. Any questions?
Regarding insurance, specifically the personnel one that we paid to help our employees, what kind of percentage increase do we have on that last year and this year?
The district cost, 0%. No increase to district costs. No increase at all for program premiums. So we are a self-funded health insurance program.
Okay.
So we establish what our premiums will be for that. And so ultimately, we made some plan design changes that were brought before the board as well that went into effect January of 2025. And those are designed in large part to help bring down costs going into the end of this past fiscal year and then going into next school year. And based upon that, based upon the trajectory of the program, we opted not to make any change.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Director Kurth. I think I got your title wrong there, so I apologize. It's really pretty remarkable that we've been able to keep the employee health insurance premium at where they're at, so that's wonderful. I think you're going to cover this in the operations report, but I just wanted to ask about the reduction in the cyber and identity theft and malicious acts insurance. I don't know if you want to, I assume that's going to be talked about in the operations report though, but.
Yep, so
yeah.
I can speak to that. And that was just based upon, so within IPSIP, we also, just like we do for our self-insured health insurance, IPSIP has a professional group that does insurance management that works to manage those policies. That change in premium is based upon their negotiations. There's no change in coverage from our end.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Dr. Eason?
Adam, thanks very much for this information. In regard to the study you're going to undertake over the next year, looking at coverage and available insurance models, I just would request that as you make those investigations and reviews, that you try to keep us informed about what's going on, so that I can at least convince myself that I actually am trying to fulfill my responsibilities in a subject area that I'm a total dunce act. So if you could help us along here as you undertake that review.
Absolutely, and I would also share that Director Eystone is on the committee, and so is part of all of those discussions as well. But happy to provide updates, especially as we dig into that work, which is.
Sounds like Charlie just volunteered to join on the committee.
Oh yeah, I'd be
How many months is it, Sean?
Not many.
I just had one question. I know you said that not all HVAC systems have been placed under the policy. What type of system are we using to determine which ones go on the policy?
That's a great question, and it's one that I might refer to our Chief Operating Officer for on that one. I know, looked at the various systems we have across buildings and made a determination about which ones we wanted covered initially, but I honestly don't know the details of that recommendation.
It appears that the recommendation was kind of a mix of young and old buildings, if you will, so that we could see what the benefits were across the spectrum of ages. So I know City High is one of them and Garner Elementary is one of them. So think about that. Probably one of our 3 oldest buildings and one of our 5 newest ones. So really to do a test pilot, we looked at varying ages of facilities, see what works best.
And how many are currently?
4.
4. Thank you. Any additional questions? All right, so that will roll us right into the annual operations report. That will also be covered by CFO Kurth.
And
And
Chief
Oh,
of HR.
HR Director, Chief HR Director? Okay, Captain HR Director, no.
Let's go.
All right, well, thank you. We're going to hop right into the annual operations report this evening. Thank you for the time, and we'll go through this. Adam and I are going to split this up next year. Might be 3 of us standing up here if we involve Kurt a little bit. We've got a few highlights that we'll hit to start with. A little did you know some fun here, I thought, of meals. This is an amazing one that we serve over 11,000 meals between breakfast and lunch a day. That's crazy. Although the miles I thought was interesting, we talked about in our route miles, 844,000 route miles. It's over 1 million if you include our trips. And then facilities, we maintain over 3.1 million square feet across 634 acres.
All right. And one thing I know that all of you have seen and shared, and most of the people in this room probably have as well, our School Choice Game On video, which has had over 150,000 views, which is awesome. As a district, we have an annual budget of over $280 million when you include all funds. And our technology team receives about 40,000 support requests per year. So a lot going on, served by 2,400 employees in the district, 30 employees within our operations department. So we're going to go through a quick overview. I'll handle the first few, and then Nick is going to take over after me. But covering our different operations offices, sharing some of the highlights from the year, and then also some of our plans as we move into next. And within budget and finance, I'll go ahead and start with that. One of the big highlights, and I know one that all of you paid a lot of attention to, is just simply our improved financial position. So last year, having this conversation would have been, a much different type of environment. So finishing FY24 with $3.3 million unspent balance, which we project to be $6.9 million at the end of FY25, is a pretty good place to be, and somewhere that's a lot more comfortable than we were a year and a half ago. And then also supporting the development of the Facilities Master Plan 2.0, something that's, been a focus for us here over the past year. As we move forward, one of the big areas of focus is selecting and implementing a modern ERP system. So right now, within the business office, we use a number of different platforms. Within HR, we use different platforms. They don't necessarily talk. And there are also some security concerns that we just want to make sure that we stay in front of, particularly given, ongoing challenges from a cybersecurity standpoint. So looking at selecting and implementing a modern system there. And then also just simply, and you'll get an update about this later on, but a return to on. And I'll talk more about what that's going to look like.
What is ERP?
Enterprise Resource. So this is the term broadly used for software that usually includes some combination of finance, accounting, HR, other business functions. Community relations. So as I mentioned, over 150,000 views in that school choice game. And, I can't say enough great things about the work that Kristen Peterson, her team have done in terms of extending those marketing efforts, really, which we look at not only as simply, bolstering our reputation, sharing what we think we're doing really well with our whole community, but also driving enrollment. We know that it's critical for us from a budget standpoint and from the standpoint of simply getting more kids into our schools where we feel in a really excellent fashion. So these efforts really drive that, and they've been tremendously impactful, I think, already. And then that strong emphasis on telling our own story by capturing some of those amazing things that we already know are happening within our schools, that everybody has a chance to. So as we move into 25-26, really continue that work to showcase ICCSD as the best choice out there. I think we all agree that we are the best school district, so let's make sure that we're that. But also some of the more operational side work that needs to be done as well to make sure that we can continue that. One of those is the transition to a centralized registration system and the addition of a welcome center. So to really make our district, especially as we're serving more immigrant families and we're serving others who are simply unfamiliar with our system, let's make sure that we have a welcoming environment for them to come into, to learn about the district, learn about the options and how to work within our system and that sort of thing. So we're excited about that. And then facilities and grounds. So completed FMP 2.0 projects have been a big focus for us, including gymnasium, elementary, classroom additions at each of the 3 middle schools, obviously bringing 6th grade into those buildings, massive undertaking, increasing the enrollment of each of those schools by 50% and building out the facility to accommodate that. So all work orders were completed, 71% within 7 days. And when you consider the work of the facilities and grounds teams and how many of those requests require getting a part or whatever the case, you know, that really shows great responsiveness, and then 92% within 1 month or less. And then also something that the board has mentioned as a priority, outdoor classrooms, we are either completed or very close to being completed. So continuing to expand those opportunities throughout the district. As we move into 25-26, FMP 2.3, obviously a big focus for us. It's been something that we've talked about with the board many times. And so moving into implementation of that, and then also implementing custodial standard procedures in a way that's consistent throughout our buildings and consistent with standards that we want to make sure are in place. And then the last department I will cover is technology and innovation. So a few highlights. One is leading cross-departmental cybersecurity and upgrading key infrastructure. Cybersecurity has been a focus for us really for a long time, but especially over the last 3-4 years. And we continue to do things like having cybersecurity trainings that involve individuals from across different operational and teaching and learning departments, where we get a simulation and we work through. It's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons for IT nerds, but it's a whole lot of fun. And the people who aren't IT nerds, I think, really get something out of it. They see how something that seems benign can become something that's actually a big issue. Right? And then we test how our system would respond. Who would you call? Who would you email? What would you do? So that's kind of a cool thing. We launched a district-wide data governance initiative and privacy vetting system. And so this is something that comes out of our data and research. But we really want to make sure that we have excellent data inventories, exactly where our data is stored, what all the rules are that are in place to make sure that's protected, to make sure data is disposed of as it should be. Or saved as it should be. And so that's been a big project led by that team. Partnering with teaching and learning to standardize on Canvas and then expand training to support use of that learning management platform. 25-26, one of the focus areas is to evaluate and pilot modern classroom tools, including AI integrated solutions. This is something that'll be a continuation of the work of that committee that made recommendations as it related to the one-to-one Chromebook program. So Andrew Fenstermaker and Patrick Snyder talked to you a couple of months ago about that, and they're the ones leading that work, and that'll continue this year as we look towards classroom technology, how we can identify what we should be using, how we can best support it. One of the things that I do want to mention, just because it's been, you know, in the news and people are talking about it, when we talk about AI integrated solutions, one of the things we've really focused on as a district is ethical use of AI, making sure that there's a human in the middle, making sure that we're not over relying on technology, making sure we're of the privacy implications of any data that may be shared or data we don't choose to share with any platform that's using artificial intelligence. So that's something that really the district has been at the forefront in a lot of ways. We've been written about in national publications in terms of being in front of AI policy and implementation within our schools. And so that's something that we take very seriously and we don't use dismissively. We're purposeful about. And then finally, aligning district technology with the updated National Ed Tech Plan. We never want to operate in a vacuum. We always want to make sure that we're looking at what outside of our district. So we're regularly evaluating ourselves against some of those external targets, and this is one of the ways we do that.
All right. My turn again. Sorry, I won't have any Dungeons and Dragons references during the remaining departments, but I will do my best to fit something in. First off, we have human resources, employee relations. There's a lot of exciting things, obviously, because that's the part group I'm a part of. But the work we've done with realigning kind of the teacher evaluation and the career development plan to work with HR has been some really great work, some collaboration across a variety of groups, including teaching and learning and others, and our principals help implement that, and that's been a nice positive step, and I think it's something we'll continue to refine and work on over the course of the years. I wish Director Williams was here for this next one. We're really excited that we've been able to hire. At one point, we sat there in the spring. So we've got to find 14 preschool teachers. Do we think we can do that? And we have. So it's really exciting, the efforts of our buildings to make that happen. We still have one halftime hanging out there that we've got to take care of, but our full day programming is covered. So we're really excited that we were able to make that happen. And then we had a really successful negotiation cycle this year with our different groups. I think Brady can probably speak to the same, that it was a really nice year working with our employees and having some success. Some things that we're going to continue to focus on is just kind of the employee experience, from onboarding to offboarding, because we do have a lot of employees and some will choose other opportunities. So how do we offboard and how do we continue to retain people? So what are some things we can do that? We're excited about some of the ideas that we have that are kind of in the works and looking forward to hopefully sharing that as a success next year. And then also we're working on increasing our training related to Title IX. There's a lot to Title IX, far more than just some of the stuff you think about with athletics and gender, and something that we just want to continue to expand the knowledge of our administrators. Nutrition, we kind of bragged about them earlier on, just the sheer the chance to enjoy a meal provided by our nutrition department, but I always find it quite good. Salads are wonderful. The composting is continuing to move on, looking at all of our production kitchens, so having the composting of food waste and leftover food. There's a lot of great partnerships that our nutrition department has to continue to source locally. There's a couple listed here with Field to Family and Local Food Hub, and I always think it's great when you see on their social media stuff where they're talking about, oh, we got this produce from a local place. That's such an exciting and nice thing for kids to be aware of, and and they continue to have increased participation in breakfast and lunch. We want to, one thing we're focused on is expanding the universal free breakfast, and hopefully kind of continuing some more conversations related to this, but seeing how we can make sure kids are getting off to a good start in the day. And then we just continue to want to encourage families to apply for the free and reduced lunch. But if they qualify for that, there are benefits to that. So it's just kind of making sure that everyone's aware that that is a resource that's available to them. Safety and security, I think we've done a variety of things within this, working on the safety and sustainability team, district-wide training with, the standard response protocol. We probably should put that in the slides, so it's not just SR there, but so I apologize for that, but just working on a standard response protocol when we work on different situations. And we've had a variety of security upgrades and emergency plans, and then just focus areas for the upcoming year, standardizing some safety features, and conduct annual site audits to just expand our emergency protocol trainings. This isn't the fun stuff to talk about, but it's that necessary work that needs to go on. And then transportation, I always think, goodness gracious, when the buses get rolling, it's so much fun to see. Moving over 4,000 students each day, those crazy number of miles. We were able to kind of work on and complete an RFP, or request for proposal, and awarded the transportation contract again to Iowa Central. And some things that we're continuing to work on, and Kurt, our chief operating officer, is a part of this. We'll be looking at some of the greener fleet options. That's something that we continue to hope to expand upon. Route optimization, always looking at, are we being as efficient as we can with those routes? And then just continuing to improve those partnerships. I know there was some strain at times, right? We just want to continue to improve that partnership between the drivers and the district and kind of the management that they all work with. And that brings us to an end. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you. A number of our directors in the various departments are here today, so if you have any questions, they can also chime in to answer those.
Thank you both, and I will open it up for director questions.
Thank you, President Malone. It's a fantastic report again, the entire staff, particularly the continued expansion to work on preschools and outdoor classrooms, which has been a favorite topic of mine anyway. Since we heard students several months ago ask for additional outdoor classrooms, and I'm glad we're responding to that. I just want to also make a couple of comments about things I've heard about the district and the community meetings that I attend and involved groups I'm involved with. And I've heard this summer two spontaneous discussions from community members about their experience with kids in the district, their kids in the district. One had to do with a grandmother whose child was attending an elementary, and she was just terribly pleased with the experience of her granddaughter about the graduation ceremony that the elementary school put on. She said they enjoyed it. She was laughing. She was having a great time. It's a wonderful thing for us to hear about. The other one is I'm involved with several immigrant support groups in the community, and one of them is the group led by Councilwoman Mazahir Salih, Iowa City Councilwoman Mazahir Salih. And I've heard on two different occasions comments and descriptions by kids from immigrant families who have enrolled in the district without language, without experience in this country, and they are just delighted at the reception that they received at the school that they chose to attend or were assigned to attend. And those things, you know, I know Kristen's not going to want to hear this, but if we had cameras available at some of those meetings to hear those stories, put them on our webpage, that would be great in my view anyway. And I know we can do it. That can be done in different ways. So thank you very much for your work here this past year. I'm looking forward to what we can do next year.
You're welcome, and thanks for sharing those stories, Director Sam.
Other questions or comments from directors?
Sure. So I'm just going to take this opportunity because you did have the custodial staff. You mentioned that in your report, and I wanted to just highlight the fact that the City High class this year chose as one of their speakers one of the custodians in their building, and I think that just says so much about the impact that not just that the educators have in our schools, but every single person. So that's where the operations comes in, where they all have an opportunity to make a positive impact on our students, and it's wonderful. I'm really pleased to see that you're digging in more with these exit interviews so that we can improve retention of teachers. It's so important. And I love your commitment to local foods with the nutrition program. I do have a question about the vending machines that you have at City and Tate, and whether or not you might be expanding that program to other secondary schools. And then if we still have the one tray at a time through the foundation where community members can donate towards the nutrition fund.
Yeah, as far as the vending machines, we would like to expand on that. We were the first in Iowa to have a vending machine that dispenses lifts, but they are off the ground, and so we're hoping to build on. It takes several months to get those in, so we are trying to work out the details and get more.
Wonderful. And then the one tray at a time, do we still have
Yes,
that through the
is-
foundation?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have a few questions here. There's a note regarding given the number of students that come and go from our high schools, do we have all the parking lots covered now?
We don't specifically have all the parking lots covered. Anything we are catching is off the building. So we do have some coverage, but not, I would say, complete coverage.
Okay. Then in this report, when you commented on a little bit about the technology, the I'm just kind of trying to get a better idea of where we imagine the money for the technology to come from, because after the facilities master plan is $36 million left in save, and I know we have a little bit left over every year.
Yeah,
For me,
so-
the student family advocate always comes first out of that leftover money. Technology will always be a second, so I'm just trying to get an idea of where that money is.
Yeah, so the amount that we have left is not based upon the borrowing capacity numbers that I shared, which assume that we are spending $14.2 million per year with no increase through 2050. The rest of SAVE, which at this point is about $6 million per year, is spent primarily on technology, SFAs, other programming, and so that's where technology would be funded out of. So it would be that amount beyond the 14.2 million, which we would expect to grow beyond per year that number is right now as we move forward if we kept that $14.2 million amount for our debt service out of SAVE.
Yeah, thank you.
I just had a few questions and comments, so they'll be intermingled. First, I'm assuming the Welcome Center will be out here. And it will be great, just as a non-driver myself, to make sure that we communicate out if there's a public bus system that gets out here, because not everybody drives. But just something to keep in the back of our head. And related to our community relations team, Director Peterson, I hear so much about the way we are telling our story and how that has attracted families into our district. So kudos to you and your team. How many do you actually have on your team?
There's 3 of us now.
I'm sorry, microphone.
There's 3 of us now, including myself.
Okay, 3 full-time people. And that's what you're able to produce. And I honestly have heard so much about how great it is. I just want people to realize it's just 3 of them, and they're doing an amazing job there. The number of completed or close to completed classrooms in total, how many outdoor classrooms? How many do we have throughout the district? I know we have 8 in the report, but in total. I'm sorry.
I couldn't answer that definitively. Obviously, somewhere more than 8. I think we're just over halfway, if I'm remembering talking with Ben a little bit about it. So we're on the downward slope overall.
Yep, and that's a mix at our secondary and elementary schools.
Correct.
Thank you. Our preschool teachers, that's fantastic that we were able to hire all of the positions, well, fill all the positions. And I know the answer to this, but I just want it in record. All of our preschool teachers are certified teachers.
Absolutely.
Okay, just want to make sure people understand that.
Dual
And
certified, actually.
what's that?
Certified, actually, between special education and general education.
That's amazing. I did not know that part. So thank you for that. Huge celebration for our nutrition program. I did not see you sitting back there because I was like, why are we hear all the great things that they have done? I'm ecstatic to see that we are expanding our free breakfast universal program. Breakfast is one of the most important meals of the day. And as a kiddo that relied on free lunch and breakfast through school, I know how impactful that can be. So thank you for not only expanding that, but I will concur with Director Proud that lunch and our breakfasts are really great at the district. If you have not had one, find out the day that they're doing a chicken Alfredo pizza. You will not be disappointed. I'm just going to say that right there. And finally, thank you for the detailed report and from your staff that also chipped in and answered questions for us tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
I just have one quick comment. I want to marry 2 points that talked about. Can we use some of the ethical use of AI to help us find the most efficient bus routes?
I don't know. That'd be fun.
Yeah, we could try. Yeah. It's a
I
good
think
idea.
that's an optimal use of AI. So let's make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. We could probably make some money off that.
Just have
Or
a
we could-
follow-up from,
Or we could wind up with bus routes to Dubuque.
We have to vet it.
Dubuque Street. I can see how that would happen.
That could be-
When you say that the preschool teachers are dual certified in early child, they've gone through the training for both early childhood and special ed,
Yeah,
correct?
It's a
Okay.
licensure. It's a specific licensure that some of them are working on are in a conditional state to get that, but most of them already have that. But yes, it's a licensure. It's an early childhood and early childhood special education.
I'll just, if I could reach over and give you a pat on the back for being able to find that in your
Yes.
team, because just finding special education teachers is hard, but to find them in early childhood, I can imagine is even.
And I'd give the credit to our building principals. They've done a job kind of recruiting people and working with folks. And there's a lot of interest in preschool right now. Kind of looking over to Liza. So even some of our current has shifted from what they were doing to have the opportunity to be in preschool because of the great things we're doing. So I'd give the kudos back to the buildings and the efforts there to make this happen.
Thank you. And thank you to Eliza. I'm sorry. I'm on the back as well, not just Nick.
All right. I think that concludes both of you, so you can have a seat. Thank you. Next up is our restorative justice presentation. I don't know if Degner, you want to start us off as Director Cottrell makes her way up?
Yeah, so we have Executive Director Cottrell is going to kick off our presentation for us. We do have a couple team members in the audience there with Martin and Brad Kelly, who are instrumental in this work too. So I want to make sure to give them a shout out. But we had agended this. Oh, now it's working. We had agended this item here late in the school year, just about this intersection between behavior infractions and restorative practices and how they work in concert and how we've tried to train up and increase our skill professionals in our system in the area of restorative practice. And I think the team did a nice job of sharing with you that, of course, we still have expectations, rules, consequences when things go wrong, but a big way that we try to put those situations back together or prevent situations from approach. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Laura and let her take it away.
Hello, directors. Just going to go over a few highlights. Just some things we're going to talk about is what preventative measures we have in place and how we use, like what we actually use to guide us when students do make missteps with their behaviors. We're going to talk about restorative practices a little bit and what expectations we have for our staff in regards to this. So here's some preventative measures that we have in place already. Because as you all know, studies show that students are more ready for rigor when they feel a sense of safety. And so we have to try to figure out, well, what does safety mean? HRS Level 1 helps guide us in defining that. But here's some things that we already have in place to help with that sense of safety. Let you guys look at that. Should I read them out loud?
Sure.
Okay, we have HRS Level 1, student feedback surveys, student and adult relationship building. We have PBIS and SEBH. So we also have restorative practices, which we have comprehensive behavior approach and our comprehensive threat assessment guidelines. And things under that are like Securely Alert 24 and Say Something. So some of those you may have heard of some of them, you may have not. And apologies for all the acronyms. But what we use to help direct how we help guide our administrators when behavior infractions take place is our CBA, our Comprehensive Behavior Approach Plan. And so it's it's a binder for some, but it's actually electronic now. And they can say, okay, if a student does this, what type of infraction was it? Okay. What level? Where does that lie? And then there's some recommended consequences. And there was a steering committee maybe 3 years ago that worked really hard. And some of you were a part of that, where we had all stakeholders included that helped to create a more restorative, comprehensive behavior approach for our school district. So we looked at things that could have been like steeped in bias or things that would bring for more disproportionality. We were able to kind of remove those things, replace them with consequences that were more restorative in nature. So when like consequences that were more restorative, it could have been like a conference or a type of circle to talk about what happened. But instead of a punitive disciplinary approach, it gave us some leverage to be more restorative. So there's two sides to restorative practices in schools. And note that I'm calling it restorative practices over restorative justice. That's really specific. That's for a reason. So restorative practices is what happens. That's preventative. That's the relationship building. That is doing check-ins, making sure students understand that they belong, right? It's morning meetings and positive affirmations and team building activities. It's academic circles, just things that are like giving students the opportunity to feel a restorative space. And so we're also asking that our staff show up in a restorative nature, meaning the way in which they question students, the way in which they interact with students, that it be more restorative in nature, like this, with this idea of like, we're gonna get to the bottom of whatever is going on, you belong here, we're one community sort of situation. On the reactive side is what happens after something's done. And so we do have that in place. Those would be those circles to repair harm, reentry circles, the types of conferences that we might have to have to determine where a student should be placed, right? Whether or not they need to be placed online. Those sorts of things would be on the reactive side. So we have two systems here, but it's all under restorative practices. So we don't call it restorative justice like that anymore. Hopefully that's clear. So here's some examples. I named some of them, but definitely morning meetings and community circles would be like dialogue circles, check-in circles, academic circles. These are the things that can happen on a daily basis. This is like that universal tier one. Anyone should be able to participate in these. Everyone is welcome in these sorts of situations. Relationship building activities like icebreakers and team building strategies or games are a part of relationship building activities. And then positive affirmations, smiling at students isn't up there, that is a part of it. Calling students by their name is a part of it. And we have these cool students called empathy ambassadors. And Brad has come before you on a couple different occasions to talk about our empathy rockets and our warriors. And these students who are learning from elementary, middle school to high school to wrap around one another, right, with this theme of empathy. So this is what we're asking our district to do. Be trained in restorative practices. We want each building admin to be trained in restorative practices. Right now, each building admin is trained in restorative practices. Get our new administration in, like we got new hire, whatever, they'll be trained in restorative practices. Right now, all of our principals have had restorative practice training. Each group of staff, we want them to who manage discipline to receive training. We want our disciplinarians to discipline with dignity. We want them to learn how to see beyond behavior. We want them to learn how to be self-aware and check their own triggers before they discipline. We expect our building teams to be trained in restorative reentry, which is really exciting. And so that piece right there is mandatory. So beforehand, we had a lot of things that were like schools had autonomy and how much of restorative practices they could do. But this piece right here, the building team is trained in restorative reentry and the expectation that when students are suspended, they receive a level of reentry that's appropriate for what they did. That's mandatory this year. That's new. Daily morning meetings, especially K-5. When we do our HRS level walkthroughs, we're looking for those morning meetings, and they're so amazing to see. Like you could just see it sets the tone for the day. The students know what to do. Like it's a part of, you can just feel a restorative atmosphere, and it's really awesome to experience. Positive affirmations and relationships for in all activities K-12. We're talking about even with our teams. Does that make sense? So we're talking about system-wide, and then restorative questioning during discipline. it feels really different to ask a student, why did you do that? Instead of, why did you do that? What happened? Tell me what happened. What happened sounds different than, why did you do that? And so we train them. Here's some questions that you can ask. Instead of saying this feels different. Restorative agreements and norm and value setting. And that is across our system. We do the restorative agreements and norm setting at the exec cabinet level. We check in at the exec cabinet level, at the cabinet level. We expect our principals to check in with their staff. They do check-ins on down. And then support problem-solving circles or meetings when necessary. Within the next 3 years, we plan to tighten it up, basically. So do more training, like continue training building level staff. Right now, all of our buildings have teams who are trained. Again, we want to do more. We want to make sure buildings are trained more. We want to create ongoing training for building admin team who conduct restorative reentry meetings. They were trained once, but we know, right, we have to wrap around them and give them so that they're super confident in these situations. So we have a schedule already planned to continue to wrap around them. We want to monitor this and help with accountability by doing monthly fidelity. One of the challenges is continuity across buildings, right? When buildings have had an autonomy to say how much restorative justice this is a new season of, yes, there's certain things you can have autonomy in, but then there's certain things you cannot. It's mandatory. We expect for you to do this, this, and this, and in this manner. And if you're not sure, call on us so we can support you. So we want to continue to train and tighten up the implementation of people and restorative capacity building within our department, which is the Department of Justice. We have a small team, but we're doing big things. And unfortunately, everyone on the team will have to be a restorative justice expert within the next couple years because we just have to do what we have to do. And so thankfully, we have a team that has been able, as our team just expanded, the hope is that everyone on the team is able to go and do some type of restorative justice work or restorative practice work. Communication is one of the areas that we definitely want to work because there's still so many people who don't know what it is. There's still some myths that are lingering out there about what it does or does not do. We want to communicate an overview of our comprehensive school threat assessment guidelines to all of our stakeholders. That's something that we all should kind of know, or we want to establish, again, continuity. And we want to continue to refine our HRS Level 1 walkthrough process, build capacity among our student equity ambassadors. We hope to get something like peer mediation happening within the next 3 years, which is super cool, where the students are kind of like helping to decide, you know, what's the best next step, and then just increase team collaboration across departments. It's been super duper awesome to have cross department collaboration. I think that's what's made the big difference in regards to like having something where like these restorative reentry meetings are mandatory. That's all due to being able to have other teammates say, yeah, this is important, we need to do this, and then sitting around a table with some administration to make that happen. Are there any questions?
Well, Executive Director Cottrell, is that right? Title. I think you know I have great respect for your work, always have, and I think about you know, even just 5 years ago, how restorative justice was a piece here and a piece over there, and you know, this teacher was doing. I mean, and you've really pulled together and made a really great structure that can make that able to happen across all the buildings in the district. So I really, really appreciate that. You've done great work.
Thank you. I cannot take all that credit. I'm thinking about even before we started to roll out restorative justice, they were already here doing that work. And then we just kept building it, and just really shout out to the team, Sharita and Fred, and just the people who are on the grounds doing the work. Like, I know I couldn't have done it myself. Like I tell him that I took a vision of restorative justice rollout, and he added color to it. like especially expanding it to the students. It was beyond what I could have imagined.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on what Director Abraham, or sorry, Vice President Abraham said, that, you know, this, again, I think it was like 8 years ago or more that it started off as a grassroots effort, and now that it's standardized across the district, it's really incredible. You know, you know, we talk about the restorative pyramid with, you know, the bottom layer are, you know, the, I'm blanking. Tier one, the tier one on the bottom right, and how we, the strategies that they can use, and of course, teachers have autonomy and they can use their own judgment as to whether their subject matter or their teaching style is the type that, you know, that they'll use those tools or not, and that makes sense. And then also the conflict resolution, then the next style, but the next tier, but the top tier, which is the repairing harm. And so that's kind of where that re-entry comes in. And so when you said that it's mandatory this year, do you mean that it's going to be mandatory, or it was mandatory last year?
As soon as we started the past year, we started training our administrators and their teams that handle behavior. As soon as we started training, it was mandatory. So we kind of got them trained quickly before spring hit, with the expectation that they start to do those reentries. So they already started doing the reentries because we wanted to be able to work out kinks with how we were guiding them for this upcoming school year. So we're able to get feedback and keep going further, but they've already started implementing mandatory reentries for suspensions.
And can you comment, or maybe it's too early to know, about what sort of impact those reentry circles or visits, again, the term, I'm sorry, the reentry, restorative reentry, is having on the degree of recidivism?
So that's something that we need to look further into. We're hoping that we can look at the data from the third trimester, third quarter, and see what happened there. But it is too soon for us to have it right this second. I know, though, that, and I've explained this to the staff, that it's an inconvenience. But they were even able to kind of testify, like some of them, like, yeah, you're right, but it has made things better, or this student didn't do that again. So we weren't seeing, like, I can just say anecdotally, like, we weren't seeing repeats, but I don't have all the data, and I can pull that. If students who were suspended from this time to this time, did they repeat those behaviors?
It'd be really interesting to see. Yeah. Thank you for your presentation.
I got a question. You talked a little bit about kind of the autonomy versus mandatory amongst the staff in the schools. I'm just, where are we at with, like, our students being participatory in the, you know, their circle? Like, are they opting in, or are they, it just is second nature that they're doing some of these check-in things? Like, I'm just trying to figure out where our students lie. And
yes. So reentry aside, they don't have a choice. That's the only thing where for if they were suspended out at least one day, they don't have a choice. They're going to sit in either restorative conversation or restorative circle, depending on the level of infraction they did. But outside of that, there was this autonomy. So that's that piece where it's like, it depends. So there are certain buildings where the majority of their staff are trained. They rarely call on assistants from up here, from Brad, to go and assist with those conflict mediation types of things. They are doing the thing. I don't want to start naming because I don't even want to be in there. But there's definitely campuses who have bought in more than others. That's the piece that we need to tighten up, to say, okay, we get that you all have had autonomy. Now the expectation is that you're actually being more proactive. We're actually seeing these morning meetings across campuses. Like, you don't get to choose to do restorative justice at all, or a little bit, a tiny bit. So that's what we need to tighten it up.
is it fair to say that if you have the staff that's bought in, the students follow along that lead then?
Absolutely. We have students who request circles. So we have students at campuses who are like, we need a circle. We need a circle, and we need a circle now. And actually, they actually are qualified to kind of help lead it. We also have students who are willing to go to other campuses and have gone to other campuses to, for whatever reason, just couldn't hear from the adults in the situation. And then that was really impactful and powerful, and they were able to get a breakthrough to those students. So we have students asking for it, like the students have bought in, and because of the work Brad's done at the elementary level, those students went to middle school. Some of those same students who were doing it at the middle school level now are at the high school. So now we almost have legacy that's being built there.
Love it. Thank you.
Director Eisenstein, if I can positively respond to you. One of the things that shows in the research, if a building is doing it with 100% efficacy, it has really good outcomes. But if it's a hodgepodge here and a hodgepodge there, the outcomes usually aren't necessarily, they're more null compared to the other groups. So, I mean, that's kind of one of my first questions here. What percentage of buildings would you say we are at? And does it differ by elementary, high school, middle school? So, go ahead.
It definitely differs. I don't have exact percentages asked for it, but I would definitely say that there's certain campuses where every single elementary school teacher is doing a morning meeting. It looks similar in quality. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
When something happens, they handle it similar across students. So that's happening at certain campuses. There are certain high school campuses who have bought in more than others. Same thing with middle school, right? Where they either try to handle it themselves internally with their training group, or they'll call on us for assistance, you know, when it gets to a heightened level, like a tier 3 type of situation. What we're trying to get them to do is, like you said, do it with fidelity. And I would even say I've seen data that shows if campuses do it 50%, 50% is still even considered school-wide. So 50% of the staff bought in, that's still technically like a school-wide buy-in for it. And that would even be powerful in regards to fidelity. But you're right, if it's, we're not going to do it, we're going to do it a little bit, we're going to do it how we want to do it, that's where we get in trouble. And so that's what we're going to try to help our administrators shore up and tighten up. Good intentions, but we'll be able to explain, like, if we could do this with fidelity, we'll see a change, especially with our preventative measures. Data shows we're doing all the things that we should be doing to prevent some of these behaviors and help with recidivism rates when done with fidelity.
Just out of curiosity, who provides the training for restorative?
So it started with we had some community partners that we brought in a practitioner and from Minnesota to train a small group of us.
Minnesota Humanities Institute? Was it the Minnesota Humanities Institute?
No, it wasn't. It was another group. They were a different group. But we were able to bring them a few times and get some community partners trained, even police officers. Like, it was like huge, that training. And then we built from there. So, like, we took that, we started to do them with some administrators. We started to do them with some students. So it was a grassroots, like, really kind of spread. When we were able to, I was able to have a kind of like a group called like RJ Ambassador, which was a group of teachers who were like deciding how this work should look in our district. We were able to hire a consultant from Minnesota to try to help us with like district-wide rollout. Then we were able to hire Brad as RJ coordinator. So right now, Brad does the bulk of our restorative justice trainings. I would say I would come in a good second whenever he needs it, but he does it so well, I don't need to be there. And that's kind of what we do. So the cool part about it too is I've trained the majority of our community partners that work with our students the most. So UA County, so we're speaking the same language.
So now it's more of a thing where we have the train. Well, you're the trainer that does training as opposed to I'm Brad. Sorry for not recognizing Brad. To continue on, for those buildings that are aligned, how are you envisioning the process of getting them in alignment? Because I think of, especially at the elementary schools where we have weird boundaries throughout and students that are housing insecure, where they could be in one elementary building 1 month and another month. And that was my kind of my background when I was teaching in all schools, is that I came into different buildings all the time and there were different expectations. So I'm just curious on.
Continue to train and wrap around. So like right now we've had about 15% of our staff, about 247 teachers trained in it over time, 42 administrators, 27 counselors, 40 BIs, those are behavior interventionists, 12 engagement intervention strategists, 17 student family advocate, 16 school facilitators. So like we're trying to spread it this way, which is actually super unique than even how districts that are super steeped in it, like Minnesota, are doing. Like they actually give us accolades for trying to like go across, you know, all of our stakeholders really. But yeah, that like just more intentional training, more oversight in regards to like showing up to say, hey, is this being done with fidelity? How can we support? Trying to make sure that our administrators and the people who are actually practitioners, you know, people helping with behavior, feel confident.
And my kind of last set of questions kind of go to the active part, because, you know, it's one of those things that all this centers around discipline and things of that nature and how we handle it. And we know that if buildings or a district ever gets labeled as having discipline issues, it's not good for enrollment. It's not. And I'm just wondering, how do you handle students when they get to, where you're like, we've tried everything in the restorative justice handbook. What do you turn to next?
So
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but
I'm just thinking when you said we've tried everything in the restorative justice handbook, it doesn't stop. Yeah. Like, so like it's a way of being. It's like a way of showing up. So like I may not have, like maybe this circle doesn't work for this student. This student may never want to sit in a circle, but we have other tools. I might grab a set of Grok cards and Grok with that student, and that might work. I might, you know what? Brad might grab a kickball and play kickball with that student until that student. We just keep trying. Mm-hmm. So like, there's no like, well, this didn't work. It's not a this. It's like restorative practices is a tool. It's a way of communicating. It's a way of saying, okay, we still want you a part of this community. So it's not like a program. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Where it's like once you finished this set of whatever, you're done, and so we just keep being flexible and responsive. Yeah. We just don't stop.
I guess, how does it fit into things when there are issues like assault or harassment, or if a law has obviously been broken, mm-hmm. especially at the secondary level?
So there are things that where restorative practices just aren't what's the word I'm looking for? Appropriate. Yeah. We don't suggest doing them with people who've been bullied and harassed. We've had super special circumstances where the harassed student or a bullied student wants it and is desiring and asking for it. And even in those circumstances, we try not to put someone who was harmed with the person who did the harm, because you can cause even more harm. So we usually steer away from those. I know that there might be buildings that operate on their own and might try to do some of that. But this is where that training like has to come back in, because just because you call something restorative doesn't mean it actually. And so we do have circumstances where a person is like good intentions, like I think we need to, but any of our trained people or anyone who's been through our training, we don't put them together.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate all your answers.
Director Cottrell, I've been in this board member in this district for I think about 6 years now, and I am just astounded by the change that you have brought to this district in our work to make it accommodating and a learning environment that's safe and welcoming for every student in the district. I'm also totally amazed at how much you know how to do this and how little I know about how to do this. So I really thank you for your work, and I hope you continue it as well as Brad. I still remember Brad bringing a group of elementary students to one of our meetings several months ago, and they were there late in the evening. And I thought that was just amazing that they would come to a board meeting late in the evening and tell us in remarkable terms what they were up to and why they wanted to be here and why they wanted to be students in this district. So what you're doing, to me, is a vital element of what we're trying to be as a district in accepting being all in for all kids, no matter what their behavior has been.
I don't have any questions, just comment. I do remember 2017, 18, and all we heard from community members was the book. We needed to get rid of the book. So I was part of working to update the CBA, and just want to commend you, Mr. Kelly and Ms. Martin and Mr. Newell, he's not here tonight, but on the immense work that you have put into our district, to the point that I hear from other districts and our School Board Association about some of the things that our restorative practice team has been doing and how they want to model that. So kudos to you all and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up is the audit for fiscal year 23, CFO Kurth. Pretend Degner, do you
Yeah,
wanna
we're going to let
open up?
Adam get some more steps in and come back to the podium here again. We had hoped to have an audit here, obviously free this evening, well behind schedule on delivering the fiscal year 23 audit. Adam's going to shed some light on where we're at in that process and kind of how we've reached this point. As he referenced in the annual operations report, our plan to get that back on schedule. I know we fielded some questions about that, so we wanted to create an opportunity for you guys to ask questions and try to bring some clarity to this audit. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Adam.
All right, I'm going to apologize that you have to see me 4 times tonight. So hopefully this will go relatively quickly. So obviously I hope to be standing up here presenting the audit results and the full audit report tonight. That is not quite ready. And so there are a couple things I do want to share. And I actually want to start with a statement from our audit team, RSM. And I reached out for this. I would have put this in board docs, but I didn't have this until late yet. So the statement, I'm going to read in full. I don't usually do that, but I want to make sure that you exactly the words they wrote in terms of update about where this process is. And so they wrote, the RSM audit team has made significant progress on working through outstanding open items related to the fiscal year 23 audit. At this time, the audit team has finished first reviews of the draft financial report, prepared draft communications summarizing the result of our audit, and has completed all initial audit testing and reviews of that work. The remaining open items consist of addressing questions and comments that have arisen as a result of reviews over the audit work performed. This is a normal part of the audit process. The audit team is currently working with management to resolve these open items. Depending on their nature and the results of each procedure, the remaining open items may lead to additional testing, the identification of audit entries, or additional findings before the audit. So that's the end of RSM's statement. And there are a few things in there that I do want to kind of highlight. And ultimately, it speaks to really the first thing I wanted to hit on, which is that this audit cycle has been substantially more complex. That's due in part to staffing changes. It's also due, as we've gone down, especially over the last 2 to 3 months, due to issues that we found that have arisen in previous years. So, for example, a recent question ended up having a cause that occurred in 2019. And so we've been doing research into previous years, which adds time and complexity, particularly since we had a different accounting system during one of those years as well. And so that's led to, some more difficult processes, even when the ultimate issue ends up being something that's fairly straightforward. And so we continue to work. And it was kind of alluded to in the RSM statement, but when we answer one question, sometimes that creates additional questions that they ask. So I don't know if any of you have gone through an audit process, but that's kind of the nature of it. This one, for a lot of reasons, has been more complex than typical. The second thing I want to emphasize is based upon the audit work to date, the opinion from both our team and from RSM is that we don't anticipate any negative adjustments to fiscal year 23 financials. And we haven't seen anything that's emerged in FY23 or years prior that would indicate anything improper or misconduct of any kind. So I know that there have been some questions as it relates to, is there something that's going to come out? We've seen nothing, RSM has seen nothing that would indicate anything along those lines. Instead, the challenges we're addressing are really related to technical and procedural issues, and they're consistent with what you might expect in a large and complicated organization, particularly one that's undergone a staffing change after many, many years of not having a staffing change. So ultimately, that's good news. The third thing that I do want to mention to you is and recognize is what I would consider really the exceptional work of our controller and director of financial reporting, Alan Moran, who's can't be here tonight. He's on RAGBRAI, and if you want anyone to explain how you set up an LLC for your RAGBRAI team and all of its assets, Alan would be happy to go into the details. But he's done a fantastic job, and in a lot of ways, the silver lining of the audit process, especially has been uncovering some things and identifying some holes in processes that will make future audits, I think, both more efficient and cleaner. So that's one of the things he's really brought. He has extensive experience. He was Cornell College and Grinnell College, and so has worked with audits as the primary work he's done for decades. And so we've made substantial improvements in our reconciliation processes, booking processes, other reporting elements. So while this year's audit has been delayed, I'm confident that a lot of the changes that we're putting in place will ultimately streamline the process as we move into future years and just, frankly, give more confidence in the work that's being generated. And then the final thing I just want to hit on is, I can't really offer a specific completion date. As you heard from the RSM, they have the report drafted. And so we've been in this stage that really feels pretty final, but at the same time, it's tough when we get something that takes us back into 2019 records and that takes and move forward. And so, we continue to work really, diligently on this. This has been a top priority for us to turn around anything that certainly as soon as we have any updates, those will be made available to the board. But that's something that, I'm obviously looking forward to getting this wrapped up as soon as possible. But I wanted to provide you both their statement and then also, some of my perspective on the entire process, where we're at and kind of what the next steps are and where we go from here. So that's the quick overview. Happy to answer any questions.
Feel free, directors.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because this was fiscal year 23. It's later than that now.
Yes.
So are we having to wait until that's all done before 24 even starts the audit process? Or is it going at the same time?
Yes and no. So officially, yes, right? Officially, we have to wait until that's all complete before we start our 24 audit engagement. We've already been doing the work to make sure that on our end, everything is in place for that fiscal 24 audit to start. And so, I mentioned that, we submit information to RSM, we get questions, and then we answer those follow-ups. There's often a lag in there, and so we've used a lot of that lag time where we submit something and it takes them a bit before they reach out with more questions to start addressing. And I say start, we started a long time ago, but start getting everything in place so that we feel like the 24 audit will go much. So yes and no. Officially, though, yes, we wait until the conclusion of this process to start 24, and then immediately upon conclusion of that, we start 25.
Yeah.
So,
I guess that's the question that I think most people want to know is when are we back on schedule?
yeah, so at this point, it's impossible for me to say simply not knowing when this one will wrap up. We do anticipate that we'll start hopefully on FY24 in the fall. As soon as FY23 wraps up, we'll start on 24. And then at that point, we expect that a typical process would take 3 to 4 for that to unfold, and then we would move immediately into FY25. There is an outside chance that we will be fully caught up and on schedule by the time that FY25 report is due. I think that's probably a stretch, so we'll probably end up requesting an extension from the state for FY25, hopefully not more than a couple of months. That would be the goal, so that then we're on cycle for 26 to be totally on time. That's ultimately where we're at right now. One other thing I should mention, we've been keeping any interested entities that are out there up to date as it relates to progress on our audit. And at this point, none of them, whether it's Moody's or any of the various lenders that we have, have expressed any. The reality is in Iowa that right now over 100 school districts are behind. And so we see substantial issues within, the financial reporting and audit sector in general in terms of staffing. It's even worse for public entities who don't tend to be particularly high value clients for a lot of these firms. And so, obviously, this is a situation we have not previously been in, but it's not one that's uncommon for public schools in the state or nationally.
Thank you.
Adam, thank you for this report. I just like to tell you that I'm not particularly concerned about the schedule or when we will get back on the calendar schedule. I am very complimentary of the work that you're doing, superintendent's doing, and other staff members are doing to work on our auditing process with a well-known and very competent auditing firm, so that we can compensate for any flaws in the process in the past, which are probably understandable and are not worthy of criticizing people. So I think the approach you're taking, which is fact-based, calm, and consistent, is what we need.
CFO Kurth, I got your title right. I haven't been here for 2 months, so I was a little bit rusty. Thank you for that explanation. I just want to check, does the delayed outcome, has that affected the district's ability to get any federal grants or other federal monies or anything like that?
No.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
My only question is, so when the final report comes, remind me, do RSM actually come and walk us through that? So that way, complete transparency, it's not you explaining the report, but we get to have that conversation with them.
Yep, correct.
Great. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that takes us to tonight's action items. First up, we have our policy primers, gender identity. Is there a motion? Anybody?
I'm trying to look this up on the monitor here. I would move that we approve the policy primer gender measures.
Seconded.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments from directors? Hearing none. Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Next up is the extra service activities policy. Is there a motion?
I would move that we approve the extra services activities presented in the agenda for this meeting.
Second.
Is there any questions or comments? Hearing none, Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all.
Thank you. And that takes us to our agenda setting portion of the meeting. First up, for August 12th, we'll have the Operations Committee meeting that will start at 5. And this thing does not work. Okay. Topic for that meeting? Superintendent Degner or Deputy Superintendent Ramey?
I don't think we had yet determined a topic. I know we're planning to resume our regular P&G meetings on the 2nd August meeting, but I don't have a topic identified for operations that first meeting. So Director Lingo, if you want to proceed with it, we can certainly get something ready, but if not, we could pass.
I will be in Alabama.
Oh, that's right. You're going to be gone.
So
Yeah.
unless the other two people on the committee.
We can hold off till you're back
Okay.
to
thank
chair that. All right. So then that takes us to our regular meeting. We have our normal items listed. We will have a discussion item that we need to pick a delegate assembly rep for the Iowa Association School Board annual meeting. That's correct, right? It cannot be me. I just want to, I can't do it this year just because I'm on that board. So be thinking about who wants to volunteer.
What is the commitment for that position?
You have to come up usually the Tuesday before, because I think that meeting is Wednesday morning. It starts at 9. So
Responsibilities during the day of the convention, basically, right?
It's the day before the main.
The day before the main convention.
Yes,
Yes,
it's the
responsibilities the day before.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So
And if you're gone anytime other than Ruthina is the representative, it's over fast. But when she goes,
I think they say Ruthina's coming, so we're gonna run until 1:30.
Can't be Sean, I know that much.
It can be Sean.
But it's after the election.
no, it can't be Sean.
I'm just saying, but he hasn't, we won't have, we will not have the canvas of the votes before that, and we won't have sworn in new
Because we
board,
won't do
or
it
the
till-
elected board members,
Yeah.
so
No,
it
yeah.
could be Director Eystone.
Sorry for not calling you director.
No, I'm on board with you.
Okay,
Can't be me.
our presentation item, we have one so far, the RAM staffing class size for the upcoming. Are there any items,
Yes.
Superintendent Degner?
Thank you. Okay, sorry, I wasn't making eye contact with you.
Yeah, I am.
Yes, we'll have a few things for you to consider on the night of the 12th. Chase was already baiting you a little bit with his legal legislative update that we'll have prepared. There was a considerable amount of bills last legislative session, and so we'll try to provide you an overview and, of course, some information on the most relevant topics. Along with you appointing a delegate assembly rep for ISB, you also need legislative priorities and submit them for sure to UEN. I don't know if we've seen the call for submissions to IASB yet, but we typically need basically make them reflect for the other organization those same priorities, obviously. So we'll have, you might want to prepare a little bit for a conversation on those legislative priorities as we get information from the UEN, or if you have a hard time finding that email, I can redistribute that about how we select our priorities from the list. And then we also thought it'd be appropriate to come back and review some as we approach serving students on the first day of school. We wanted to have a conversation with you all about that and refresh everyone's memory. And then unfortunately, we also probably should have a topic on measles and plan is there, some discussion about vaccine efforts, and then also expected what that looks like. So we'll have some folks from our health services team here to talk to you about that as well. So those are a few of the items that we have kind of in the hopper for what we were thinking on the 12th.
Great. And just as a reminder, if there's items that directors would like for discussion at future board meetings, feel free to share that with Superintendent Degner, myself, or Vice President Abraham, and we can make sure those go in the parking lot. Or we could do it right now.
And so just to clarify, the next policy and governance meeting discussing the 200.3R1, what date will that be?
August.
That will be August.
The second
meeting in
yes.
August. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thanks.
We had 200.3R1. We had the 100s, and wasn't there a third item we were coming back to?
The policy primers that we saw first.
Primers, yes.
Back to the UEN legislative priorities. The email that we just received of asked for input on that, but that's I need to wait until we've acted as a board to do that.
Usually we just have one person respond to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Correct.
You can actually, the nice thing about that email, it came with a link where you can pop it up in sort of a narrative format and not in the questionnaire, so we can use that as our
The
information to have our
discussion
discussion
point.
points on it.
There are two topics. Then one of them I didn't see on the parking lot in the superintendent's notes, but one that I'd like to bring up is the AI. What kind of integrated solutions we're looking at? Kind of protecting data, ensuring teacher autonomy, things of that nature with the AI. And then with the FMP being targeted at extracurricular activities, I would like a better idea of schools and high schools and whether they reflects the diversity of our buildings. So is the proportionality of students on free and reduced price engaged in athletics at a roughly equal rate, and same with race, ethnicity, those kind of things too, because if we're investing all this money, I'd like to know that that there's equity in how it's going to be used, and if it's not there now, what kind of processes, especially in the elementary, middle schools, that we can do to help get students at a level that they can all have a chance to compete at high school.
Great.
I'll probably want to follow up with you a little bit about the AI director. So just don't forget, so we can have a conversation, because we just had delivered some information. Just remind me to ask you some more about that one.
And I would ask Mitch too, could we extend your interest or the interest you've expressed to the performing arts programs too?
I would say that encompasses performing arts.
Thanks.
Whichever groups are getting the money.
All right. And that brings us to, before we adjourn, directors, remember we do have a closed session immediately after this meeting. But with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.